I started a consulting business this year and got all three of my first clients from Instagram. They all came from posting content, but they all came in slightly different ways, and I'm going to get into those three strategies in this video. Now, these were all people I didn't know before, weren't located in my area, and that I had never met. I live in Florida, and my clients are in New York, California, and another part of Florida. And if you're new to my channel, for context, what I do is I consult very hands-on with business owners who are trying to sell their business, whether they're doing it right now or sometime in the future. I've sold a couple businesses myself, and so I use the lessons, experience, and connections that I have to help other business owners do that. I'm also building my current business to be sold, so on this channel, I share the ways that I'm doing that and some of the ways that I'm helping my clients do that. I help pull back the curtain behind mergers and acquisitions and business brokerage and demystify a little bit of what goes into it to help make it easier for other business owners. So I hope you can find some value in what I say here. And if you do find value in any way, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that you can get notified when new videos like this come out. But let's go ahead and get into it. So as you might guess, this is a pretty specific need and not all business owners are going to need it. So in order to find clients, I have to talk to a lot of different business owners. So with this comes the need to really be in a lot of different conversations. So I decided to use Instagram because I had a lot of experience and a little bit of a following around this already. And I thought it would be the perfect place to find new clients by posting content. Now, there was 4 main reasons that I decided to use Instagram besides this. Number 1, the Reels feature allows you to get really big reach with your content. Number 2, it's really easy to boost your Reels with ad spend to reach more people. Number 3, I see Instagram as a little bit of the new website in the sense that I myself usually go on people's Instagrams to do research about what they do, and I thought this would be a good place for people to find me. And number 4, and maybe most important, Instagram has a really good messaging platform, and I'll get into why this is important as we get into these strategies. So like I said, it all started with posting content on Instagram. This is the pillar of what I do, and a solid content strategy must be in place for you to use these strategies. Now, my chosen strategy lately is to just document what I'm doing and post a little bit about the work that I do, as well as some educational tips that business owners that are considering working with me might find helpful. This allows people to check out my page, get to know me a little bit, and get to know the type of advice that I give and things that I teach to decide whether this is something that's right for them. Now, the first client that I got with my consulting came through a referral, and this was a little bit convoluted, but stay with me here and I'll explain how it worked. And I'm going to give a little tip in here for being visible on multiple platforms without extra work. So here's how this one happened. Someone actually saw my content on Instagram and decided to connect with me on LinkedIn. Now, the tip here is that he connected with me on LinkedIn because he saw that I was also posting content there. And a little tip for you here is that you can actually use something called repurpose.io to set up an integration where when you post to something like Instagram, it automatically posts it to LinkedIn. And this way you don't have to do more work posting it in 2 places. And so this guy thought it would be a good place to have a conversation on LinkedIn because I think a lot of people think that way about professional services. It just feels like a professional place. So if you are in professional services or consulting, I do recommend being in LinkedIn, even if you're using something like Instagram just for its reach on video. So what happened is after this guy messaged me on LinkedIn, we got to talking, and it turned out that he wasn't really in the position to work on selling a business at the time, but we just had a conversation on Zoom and talked a little bit more. I got to know him and his background, shared my story and what I was looking to do, and it turned out that he knew someone who was actively trying to sell his business and was having a little bit of a tough time. So I shared a little bit of resources with this guy to share with his friend, and the next thing you know, a couple days later, the guy was booked on my calendar. So we ended up having a conversation over Zoom as well. By the end of that call, we had determined that it was a good fit, and he decided to book one of my packages. Now, a tip here is that it's important to make connections with all types of people, whether they seem like a good fit right off the bat or not. Now, this person at first glance was not necessarily in a position to work with me, but he was interested in what I was doing, and he ended up being a really good connection and actually referred me some business. Now, the second client that I got through Instagram was actually through a post that I put on my profile that I was actively boosting. And I'm going to break down the exact ad that I used and how I did it, why I did it this way, and how this played out. Now, this wasn't anything fancy. This was essentially just a carousel post on my Instagram that I edited to make it look like a tweet thread. And I just made this using Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, it's like a graphic design in Photoshop, had a baby, and just created the perfect app. And I really recommend it for anyone who's doing any kind of marketing. Now, going through this post, it's essentially, it looks like a tweet thread. And it says, if I knew what I know now, I could have sold my business for 100x what I did. A thread. And I'm not gonna read through the whole thing, but I'll show it here on the screen so that you can read through it. But essentially the point of this post and what it does is to give kind of a synopsis of what my story is and why I started doing this, and to prompt the reader to, if this is a position that they feel like they're in and can benefit from a conversation with me, to go ahead and message me or book a call with me or get in contact with me. Now, the key here and what I did is you boost this post regularly. So you turn on a boosting just within the Instagram app, and you have it just keep boosting until you end the ad, and just decide on a budget that you're going to work with. Now, you will get guaranteed reach with this, and you want to make sure that you target the right type of audience, and you can use that with the filters on Instagram. So what I did is, because I serve business owners and I figured that most of the people on Instagram were going to skew a little bit younger, I ended up deciding to boost it to only business owners between 25 and 50 years old or so. So this person read up on my tweet thread, got to know my story a little bit, decided to spark up a conversation. We talked a little bit, and then after determining that she was a good fit and was in the position of the type of people that I was looking to help, we got on a Zoom call, talked a little further, and ended up coming to a consulting arrangement where she signed up for my services. Now, my tip, if you're going to use this strategy, is that you want to decide ahead of time what qualifies someone to be a client of yours. So I'll share with you what the qualifications for working with me were. So for me, I'm looking for someone who's a business owner who has earnings of $120,000 or more. This is because of a couple reasons. It'll leave them with enough margin to be able to afford my consulting services and still have some left over to be able to implement strategies that we focus on. Now, another thing is that they need to be looking to sell within the next year or two. This is because if they're not, I can't really work on getting them results. So I'm only really looking to help people who I can get results for. And I recommend, if you're using this strategy, to be very intentional about the questions that you ask someone in these conversations so that you can determine whether they are a good fit for you before you waste either of your time getting on a call. And it's important to disqualify people that it doesn't make sense for you to talk to. And there's this kind of weird psychological principle that happens here where if you're coming from the place of disqualifying people that are the wrong fit, people will naturally just feel that there's a level of exclusivity of working with you, and it'll actually draw them towards wanting to work with you more. Compare this to someone who's just available to anyone and everyone. People are going to feel like you're not going to actually get them any kind of results and like you have way too much time on your hands. Now, another tip here is to boost content that's not even an ad. So what I do is I watch sometimes for content that just performs a little bit better than usual. My personal rule is if the watch time of the reel that I post is above 10 seconds and has decent engagement, then I'll go ahead and try boosting that too. And if it does well with a first boost of a day or two, I might boost it a little bit more. Now, what this does is it helps you actually bring in new followers to your account, and you can actually message those new followers that come in through your content and have a similar qualifying conversation with them. Now, the third client that I got was actually the simplest of all. And this client came from just posting content regularly, and they actually just booked a call without ever having a conversation in the DMs or anything like that with me beforehand. They just showed up on my calendar one day. We got on a Zoom call. We had some calls along the way and ended up kind of qualifying and determining that they were a good fit and ended up working together. And there was a couple key things that I had in place as far as the infrastructure behind this that allowed for this to happen. Now, there's three main components of this. And the first one is that I had a link in my bio that went to a landing page, and it's still on there if you want to check it out, where it basically just introduces my story. There's a little video on there of me where I introduce how the consulting works and what I work on with business owners. And it just gives kind of a breakdown of what kind of things we would cover. This is so that someone can read up and get to know me and the business a little bit and see if it seems like a good fit before they book a call. Element number two is that on this page, I actually had a button where it went to a Calendly booking. Now, if you're not familiar with Calendly, it's a great little tool where you just hook up whatever calendar you use, Google, Apple, Outlook. I'm pretty sure it connects to all of them. And then you can actually just have someone click the link and book a call with you. You also integrate Zoom into this, so when someone books a call, it just automatically has a whole calendar booking with everyone's email, the Zoom call and everything. Makes it super easy. And the third element is within the Calendly app, I actually created a form that helps qualify this person. So I mentioned before that I would have these conversations with people in the DMs to ask qualifying questions to see if they're a good fit before wasting anyone's time. So I actually put a similar set of questions into this form on Calendly so that before they go to book the call, they have to answer these questions. And this just helps me get a good idea of what stage they're at before we actually get on a call so that I can know whether it's a good fit. And I can also know a little bit about what's going on in their business and be prepared. Now, this also gives me a good idea of why they booked this call in the first place. And this just helps in the selling process ultimately. I am able to get on the call this way and understand why they wanted to talk to me and be able to kind of match that up with what I do and just show them how it would be working together and solving the problems they're looking to solve. So eventually it came time to get on this call that just magically showed up on my calendar. And here's how it went down. So we got on the call, had a pretty long conversation about the business, and it ended up that there was a partner of the business that wasn't present initially. So we'd planned a follow-up where the partner could come on and we all talked a little bit more a couple weeks down the road. Now, once we had all kind of gotten on the same page and made sure that it was a good fit for everyone, they decided to sign up with my services and we continued from there. Now, on any call I get on with a business owner, I always start by asking why they wanted to get on this call. And this opens them up to start talking about the problems they're experiencing or the things that they're looking to solve. And what you can do is begin to present yourself and your business as the solution to their problems. So the path that I look to take with every business owner that I get on a call with is discovering the problems that they have and then presenting potential solutions and then talking about what it would look like creating a plan around these together and working on them. So if they end up liking the solutions that I present, I usually ask them how big of a priority it is to actually implement these solutions. And if it's a high priority for them, then I ask if they'd like help with it. Pretty straightforward, essentially just seeing whether they actually want to continue working with me. Now, the big mistake that I see people make all the time and that I made early on with this process and that costed me a lot of money and a lot of sales and some really good potential clients is that you focus too much on just presenting all the things that you do in your business and having a very regimented way of doing it. I had this big idea for exactly how I wanted to work with every client. And in reality, what I needed to do was just kind of shut the fuck up and listen. Ultimately, people want to be heard and they want simple solutions to their problems. Now, in reality, what I do is not simple. There really isn't a very simple solution to this problem, but it's best to start out with at least a simple version of the problem or a simple first step and kind of go from there. People don't want you to overcomplicate it. That's just going to scare them off and make them not want to work with you because it feels overwhelming. If you overwhelm someone with the selling process here, the danger is that they get a little bit caught up in the paralysis of analysis. And in reality, you could have just simplified things and kind of started with a first step. But anyway, this is how I got my first few consulting clients on Instagram. I think you can really get consulting clients in most industries this way. It's just about having the right set of qualifications and having the infrastructure in place and then having conversations continually. And these strategies can work for you if you set yourself up for success with that infrastructure and post content regularly. And just be authentic about your content, share real experiences. This is what really connects with people. Now, if you just stumbled across this video and haven't been introduced to my story yet, I talk about it more in a video that I'll link up here. And I hope that you got some value from this video and share it with a friend.